Alright, hey guys, welcome back. I'm Josh. We're at the Quick Speed Shop. Bam! We're working on Dodge stuff today again. Last time I got my chassis or my frame painted with East to Rust encapsulator and then flat black. I got the furnace on today because it's super cold out. The temperatures went way down. It's like 5 degrees out. So we're going to work inside on this guy today, and I think we're going to put the engine the rest of the way together. Over here I've got the Magnum 5.9 that I put together for this engine a few videos ago. Painted it, converted it to LA style, timing cover water pump. It's got aftermarket damper on it, and it's going to be carbureted. I got a Chinese air gap knockoff intake off eBay. It's like an assassin or something like that. It was polished aluminum. I painted it turquoise to match. But today we're gonna glue the intake on. I've got some replacement distributor from the junkyard actually, but it's like brand new with brand new plug wires. The engine came with these Bosch Platinum plugs in it that I'm going to end up running because they're like mint and they're way better than the cheap crap ones you can get now at the store. So I'm just getting ready to put the gaskets on. Being the Magnum, this has got a little bit fancier setup than the regular old school. It's got these fancy metal impregnated gaskets that go on here, and usually you'll see people use RTV around here, but I'm going to use the fancy gaskets since I'm setting the intake down on it. I think it's going to be okay. Okay, the first thing I want to do, right where the heads and all this comes together, I've got some black Hermetex RTV gasket maker here. I want to put a little bit of silicone in the corners just for extra protection where everything comes together. Kind of mush it in there just a little bit. Just try to get a little bit of bead of action going, and actually around the water, where the water goes in the heads here, I'm just going to smear just a tiny little bit with my finger just to get it going. I'm going to let this RTV tack up for a couple minutes just to get a little bit tacky. Okay, with the RTV here, I'm going to go ahead and take these front and rear gaskets for the intake. They're steel in the middle so they won't smush out. And I'm just going to lay them down in here. They got two little dowel pins on them that locate them. Smush them into the RTV like that. Just kind of wiggle them in. They should dry seal. They're double layer rubber. They should dry seal down with this intake, no problem. They don't need any RTV. There we go. Just dry seal that guy. The rear one is pretty small, but it goes in there. It's got the cutout. Let's see, the cutout for the distributor. Just like that. These are nice new technology. Back in the day when you got like the cork or just rubber front and rear without the steel in them, they could shoot out. So you'll see a lot of people not use the gaskets. They'll just put RTV in them. But these new style gaskets, I think, are going to be okay. And I'll put just a little more RTV at the corner here, dab her up in. Okay, now the RTV is tacking up with those end play gaskets. I got some Permatex Gasco tack here. It's just like shellac here. I'm just going to put a little bit on the mating surface here. I can see where it goes. This is just like, used to be like Indian head shellac, something like that. I'm just going to brush her up on. Just for a little bit of tacking action. This will help tack the gasket to the steel and just provide just a little bit of sealing. Stuff's kind of old. I should get a new container. So here's the intake gasket. It's like this impregnated. I wonder which side goes out. Are they labeled? That's odd. Huh. It's got just a little bit of extra surface area here, but it doesn't say out on it anywhere. The intake is super smooth, so I'm going to put the embossed area down and have it pressed on the head. That's what I'm going to do, making the executive decision right now. So this guy is just going to go right on here like that. I'll let her tack up a little bit. Oh, I see the gasket covers, goes all the way up, so there's going to be exposed gasket above the intake. All right. Now once again, I'm just going to take just a tiny little bit of RTV, and I'm going to smear it around this gasket surface around where the water jacket is, just to give me a little extra action with the water jacket. Better safe than sorry there, where you got coolant involved. Spread it on just a little bit. And this side, put the gasket sealer on the gasket. Just drop this guy down in. Nice. Line them up. All right. I'm going to just RTV, let it tack, and then we'll put the intake on. All right, before I put the intake on, I'm going to take the opportunity to dump the oil into the engine right through the intake. I'm using Shell Rotella 1540 here. Even though this is a roller camshaft engine, I like to run 1540 Rotella and everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and, I got a 4 quarts here, a gallon. I'm just going to go ahead and dump it all in, let it get in around the lifters, and because this engine hasn't had oil in it in a long time, just trying to goop her up, let it soak in the lifter valleys, down on the cam in the back, down on the gears for the distributor. Just kind of pour it all up in here. Let it soak and eat on it for a little bit. There are drain holes, obviously, out of the valley into the pan, so it'll take the oil down, but I just wanted to get some oil down on these lifters. And we'll spin the engine over a whole bunch of times to build oil pressure, but it's not going to hurt to add a little bit of oil right now. And it needs one more. I'm not sure if this takes 5 quarts or 6 quarts. I'll have to look it up, but put 4 quarts in it for now and let it oil on up in there perfect like that. Get some oil going on things. So the intake, I went and I put the Gasco tack on the bottom of the intake because it just seems like it'd be easier to do that. And we should be ready to go ahead and place this guy right up on here, just like this. The air gap's nice because it gives you a nice spot to hang on to. So that looks pretty good right there. I'll get the bolts. The bolts, I went to magnumswap.com and they gave me the torque spec. It looks like 15 foot-pounds for initial torque, and then about 25 foot-pounds for total torque. Like I said, these are stainless steel bolts, and I put some of that non-hardening thread sealer on all the bolts. Now you notice these, this is a dual bolt pattern. You see here, this is for LA style heads that go through the side. And this intake came with plugs you could press or beat into there. And I was a little worried about, the cast aluminum actually breaking, trying to beat those in there. So I'm going to take clear silicone when it gets done here. I'm going to carefully put clear silicone in those holes and just seal them up, just to keep the dirt out of them. I mean, it shouldn't matter. But just to keep the dirt out, that way if I ever want to put this intake on an LA motor, I don't have to beat the plugs back out of it. I can just clean the silicone out and I can silicone the Magnum holes. So it seems like a good answer. I don't know why. It's not going to hurt it to have clear silicone in those holes. It's going to be fine. But this, I bought this intake drilled for both. The Edelbrock air gap Magnum swap intake comes the same way, drilled for both. I'll just do a precursory snug down. cursory, the word of the day. I went stainless steel bolts just because I wanted to have a little bit of dressed up action on here, and the original bolts were all crunchy and I would have had to paint them. Then you, uh-oh, that front bolt is stripped out. That's not good. Wish I'd realized that before I did this, but didn't know it. Now should I make contact with those impregnated gaskets? Hopefully everything is okay. All right, there we go. Saw me tighten them by hand. That was about 15 foot-pounds, and I went and I torqued them all from the inside out to 25, so the thing is all seated. I had to take and I had to put a longer steel bolt in here with a nut. I had to grind the side of the nut down to fit by the head. I was able to through bolt this last bolt here through the head with a nut, so that's good to go. She's all set for now, and I've got to get my clear silicone. Like I said, I'll just silicone up these extra bolt holes, and then that will be sealed up nice. But the thing's sealed up all good. I went on the interwebs. I found the firing order here. Number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it says number 1 on the distributor wants a point over here, which I don't know why that would be. I like to usually have a point at the number 1 cylinder when I set up. I mean, it doesn't matter. If we set this the top dead center number 1, point it there, then put the plug wires on, it should be fine. I don't know why they got it facing over that way. What we got here? Okay, the intake was open, or the exhaust was open, so the exhaust valve is closing. Actually, I can take this out and feel compression coming up, probably. You should want to open the intake, start to open the intake valve soon. Okay, it's opening a number 1 intake. It's letting air in. Closing the intake valve. Now, should be able to feel it start to make compression here soon. Oh, just did the exhaust valve again. Hold on a minute. Okay, it's starting to make compression. You hear that? If you can hear it. So it's coming up on top dead center. Now I've got marks on my I've got marks over here on the timing mark on the balancer. So I want to got 0 on the balancer. I got on the timing cover. I got numbers on the balancer, so this should go right to 0 right there. That should be top dead center on number 1 cylinder because we were making compression. Both the valves are closed and we're pointing 0 and 0, so that should be top dead center. So now I can put the distributor in, face, we'll do number 1, we'll do it pointing here. And whatever rotor that points at, we'll do 1, then we'll lay out the plug wires. So what I got here is these plugs are in the engine. They're Bosch Platinums, and they're actually in really nice shape. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these guys in here permanently because these are high-end plugs. They're like $6 a piece now. All right, on a Dodge engine, the distributor goes in the back, and you can see down in here, that is the gear that runs off the cam that runs the oil pump, and there's a slot which is full of oil right now, but there's a slot that the distributor goes into. The distributor just got a straight slot on the end of it like a screwdriver. There's no gear like on a Chevy or a Ford, so it can only go one way. I have this distributor I got out of the junkyard. It's a Proform, but you can see it's a brand new distributor somebody put in an engine. So we're going to go ahead and use it. Let's see. I'm going to place my vacuum advance point here so I got room to maneuver it. I don't know where the actual slot is, so we're going to have to guess. But I want my distributor, my, what do you call it? My slot pointing where it's got to be. Well, it's going to be is what it is. With the mopar, it's actually facing like the Magnum picture was, pointing off in this direction, even though number 1's over here. And because of the slot, I really can't, if I face it over here, it's only going to be 180 in or out, and you can't really turn that without pulling the gear out and turning it. So I'm going to have to make this the front. Point over here is going to have to be number 1. So we'll go ahead and I get my coil goes here. So I'm going to trying to pick the best spot for the vacuum advance where I can get to it later. Want to have maximum movement with the vacuum advance. We're going to have throttle linkage over here. I got to think about that. The coil sits up here. The firewall. I'm going to place it like this. The plug for the distributor won't hit the firewall, and if I turn it just like that, I should be able to, when I say I have the coil on it, I should still be able to have room to turn the distributor. If I put it here, a little worried about hitting the coil. So I'm gonna point it right at the coil bolt, and that'll give us some room to maneuver. Sometimes these caps have number 1 marked on them. I don't see it on this one. And it's only going to go on one way. It fits over a detent here, right here. So, like that. So that's going to make this one in the front of the engine. Got a silver Sharpie. I'm going to just mark it with 1. So we know that's number 1 there. Now I can, these are new plug wires as well that were on the distributor, 7mm high suppression cables. They look like they're in decent shape, so should use those, should be no problem. Here's my electrical plug for the electric ignition box. So I like that placement. That allowed me to have some room. The firewall, will be here. That should give me plenty of room to turn the vacuum advance left and right to play with it. Right now we got it set looking at top dead center on number 1. I think I'm actually going to wait to install the plug wires until after the valve covers are on, because they're probably going to go over the valve covers, and I still haven't powder coated the valve covers and put them on yet. So I'm going to hold off, but I've got this marked at number 1. I'm going to get the distributor clamp, bolt that in there, just kind of lock the distributor down with a little tension so it can't just spin out of whack. I'll keep it looking right at number 1. Then once the valve covers are on, I'll take these plug wires and place them on the engine. Okay, I bolted the coil that came with this distributor. I got it all from the junkyard. Just bolted that up on. Got the wires for that. It goes right with the factory bracket right up on top of the intake. It had a spot for that to go. So that's all set. But here is the carburetor. I bought it rebuilt. I got a good price. It's a 600, getting dust in it, 600 CFM Holley with electric choke, vacuum secondary. Bought it for $230. at a swap meet like 3 years ago. That's a really good price because this is a $500 carburetor if you bought it new now. But that'll go right on there just like that. We got our throttle linkage or cable. I can't remember. I think the Dodge is a cable. Throttle cable will hook onto this lever somewhere. There's no kick down because this is a standard transmission truck, so I don't need to worry about that. But this has electric choke. The fuel hose will come off the front, go around. I've got timed and a ported vacuum connection up here to run to the distributor. It also has manifold PCV ports on this side and tuning screws and fuel bowls, 2 fuel bowls, and it's been all rebuilt, so it should go good. All we should have to do is really set the idle mixture screws on this side once we get this thing going. So that's what that's going to look like up there, just natural finish, but you get the idea. And if you're wondering, if you haven't seen before, doing this thing up old school, I've got these Mickey Thompson LA Mopar valve covers that are going to go on here. My buddy's going to blast them up and powder coat them like a silver metallic for me, but this will be like an old school look of cool action Mickey Thompson valve covers and old school. So this will look just like an LA motor, even though it is a Dodge Magnum. Okay, for headers here, I've got these stainless steel headers. I bought them on eBay. I'm sure they're made in Taiwan or China or somewhere. But is what it is. They're stainless steel. They're all TIG welded. And they got super thick flanges. And I've had good luck using cheap eBay headers before. So we're going to go with these. They're a block hugger header for a LA style Mopar, but they'll bolt right onto the Magnum. And I should be able to build dual exhaust on my Dodge, no problem, these tight block hugger headers. The only problem is I don't like how they seal. They've got this flange here, which I think took like a lead donut, and then it's got a 3-bolt flange that would bolt to the collector, which is somewhere here. We've got a flush collector here that I think would squish on the donut. What I want to do, my friend's got a TIG welder. I'm going to trim this bellow off it here, or whatever this is, and I'm going to tack these flanges on and then have him TIG the inside of it with some stainless steel rod and just make a 3-bolt flange that bolts up flush. I'll get a I think this is like 2 1/4, 2.5, probably 2.5. I'll just get a regular 3-bolt flange exhaust gasket, and I'll just bolt these suckers right up here, put them on there, then build my exhaust down from there. So I just got to see the Magnum's got this the motor mount on a Magnum bolts in the middle, and the LA style motor mounts up in the front, which they still leave the tabs on. So I'll be using this for the truck mount, but I've got to watch out the header hits this cast boss here. So I'm just going to hold these up and make sure that I'm going to clear it. And sometimes you got to do a little bit of grinding on that boss. I'm just going to take this flange, I'm going to mark it with a marker where I got to cut it off, and then I'll just hold this flange up. So the single bolt's got to be on the outside, because if I had it on the inside, it would hit this casting. So if I put the 2 bolts on the inside, and that goes there, and then put the single bolt on the outside, everything will be fine. It's just barely kissing that there. I think I'll be all right. So I'm going to cut these off with a cutter real fast with a cutoff wheel, and I'll just take my MIG welder, and I'm just going to tack this flange in 2 spots, and then I'll have him TIG it up on, and then we'll go. But this is the look of the stainless steel headers that we're going for here. All right, so I forewent the TIG welding, and I actually used my MIG welder, and I cut these off, and then I just MIG'd them on the inside, and it came out really nice. I mean, it's not going to rust and fall apart in there. You won't even see it. Didn't even discolor the outside at all. So I've got my flanges made, and these also fit on here, just like I've been showing you, just like that. It just clears the boss. It should work out good. So I'm using these headers came with these gaskets with these like weird holes in them, and I hold them up here. You can see how thin this is in the center. It like really, there's no material there, and it's actually got an air gap here where exhaust would escape. It doesn't even cover up the side of this head bolt here. These are meant for an LA small block, so on an LA small block, maybe there's not this big hole here on the heads. I'm going to guess that's what that is. So these gaskets aren't going to work. Luckily, I bought a set of Magnum headers that I couldn't use, and they came with a gasket. And the Magnum headers are way better. The gasket's way better. It's way thicker in the center portion here. But as you can see, the gasket overhangs the spark plugs a ton. There used to be sheet metal tubes around these spark plugs. I eliminated those. I'm just going to run straight boots. And that's really blocking the spark plugs. I don't know. I don't like that at all, but it will seal all the Magnum head. So what I did is I went over on my Beverly shear and I trimmed down the gaskets. So now I've just got 3 little piece gaskets. And they go right in here. They don't cover the spark plugs. It's the center one, and then the end ones will just lay in here like that, and the spark plugs will be open. So now we're ready for action. All right, so I just got the headers bolted on here with just 2 bolts. The bolts that came with this were 3/8. It must be the LA heads are 3/8 bolts, and Magnum heads are 5/16. So I don't have any 5/16 header bolts, and I really need them to fit in the tight spots here. So I just bolted these on temporarily. The flanges are done. I went on Summit Racing and I ordered some 5/16 1-inch thick, 1-inch long header flange bolts. So they'll show up in a couple days and I can bolt these on. I cut my gaskets down so everything's all set. So I guess that's it. I think that's where I'm going to finish up with the engine right now. I bolted on the Magnum valve covers just to keep junk out of the engine. I got the lifting plate ready to go. And put the intake on. I actually put the fuel pump on off camera, just 2 bolts, mechanical fuel pump. And yes, you Magnum guys are saying, why is there a mechanical fuel pump on a Magnum? In the earlier video, I put the cam snout extension you can buy to put on the Magnum because it's a roller camshaft. With the fuel injection engine, there's no need for a mechanical fuel pump, so they didn't put a snout on the end of the cam. But they make one that bolts on. So I bolted that on in a previous video, so I can run this mechanical fuel pump, which will go to the carburetor and go to the fuel tank. So that's all done. Everything's bolted on and torqued, and pretty much the only step I got to do is put these headers on, and then this engine is ready to go in the chassis when I get that rolling. I'm going to put the flywheel on it in the chassis and then bolt up the 4-speed transmission, clutch, and pressure plate and transfer case all in the truck. And it'll be a lot easier there. So I'll cover this back up for now, and we'll get back on the chassis next time. But yeah, that turned out good. It looks mint, so I'm happy with it. So we'll see you next time, working on Dodge stuff. Bam! Here at the Quick Speed Shop. I'm a professional. Don't try this at home.